Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
Let's move on to Andy, who's in Romford. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Ian. Right, I wholeheartedly agree with the four Eastern European countries. If you look at the state of Germany, Sweden, Norway and France over this mass immigration, they're turning otherwise nice areas into ghettos. You've got their type of culture, which is, we all heard about the Cologne incidents, sexual assaults. This is a daily thing going on there. And why should they want to turn their country into that? And for the other guy, Lord Dubs,
Have you been to any of these? Have you been to any of these countries that you mentioned recently?
No, my sister lives in France.
Whereabouts?
She's actually quite aware of it. In Perpignan.
Okay.
And it's actually started creeping down to there. So, you know, she's actually thinking about coming home after 3 years of enjoying it. Truth was told, the way the East End of London was getting, that was why she went over there. But it seems to have followed her over there. So, but another point, that Lord Dubs, he's talking about people sleeping under trees in Calais. We've got our ex-servicemen sleeping under bridges in this weather. Let's sort our people out first before we worry about that.
Well, it shouldn't be either or, should it?
Why should it not? Why should we not look after our own people first, yeah?
I'm not saying we shouldn't look after our own people, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't...
You ain't got milk for 8 or 9. Then that's the state of our country. We're trying to spread everything too thin.
We are the fifth or sixth richest country in the world. Do you not think that confers upon us a certain responsibility to look after people who are less fortunate than we are?
Yeah, after we've looked after our own.
Well, as I'm saying, it's not an either-or situation, is it?
It is. Look after ourselves first, make ourselves strong, and then what we've got left over, they're more than welcome to. But
that's a really selfish attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a really selfish person. If you want to call me a racist, I'm not a virtue.
I haven't called... No, you said that. No. I didn't say it.
Perhaps I am. Perhaps there's a little bit of subliminal coming out of me, eh? But if people want to keep virtue...
And you're okay with that?
And Lily Allen, I'm fine with it. I love my country. I love my people. I don't want to...
But a lot of the people that you just sort of disparaged in the East End, many of them will have been born there.
They're still...
And his line's gone. What a shame, because I was looking forward to a bit of a row there. But anyway, never mind. That was Andy in Romford, gracing us with his views.
Back to your views of whether you see Jeremy Corbyn as a possible Prime Minister. He certainly does. He thinks probably within 12 months. Adam in Millwall. You're on the radio, Adam. What are you going to tell me? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I can't see him becoming Prime Minister, and I'm just so sick to death of people saying the guy's got principles. I mean, on the one thing he's campaigned on the whole of his life, and that's the European Union. And I understand it's not the only issue, but one of the issues. He's been very anti-European Union. He has voted against the European Union treaties in Parliament every opportunity he's been given to do so. He's campaigned against it in the past, against the treaties, and now he's leading a party that wants to retain us in the single market, the customs union, and that's depending on who you're talking to in the Labour Party, if they want to do that or not. And that's not principles. If it was principles like Tony Benn, who he admired so much, then he would say, no, we're not. I'm the leader of the party. This is what I want to do. But he doesn't do it. He just wants to. He wants to, not cause any infighting within the Labour Party so that people don't threaten his leadership. That's the way I see it.
All right, stay on the line. I want to bring someone else in. Jay in Wembley. Jay, you've listened to what Adam says about Jeremy Corbyn. What would you say to him?
To be honest, I just think it's ridiculous. And the people coming on and calling him a Marxist and a communist, they really need to read up on what they're talking about, because Jeremy Corbyn is none of those. He's actually representing social democratic values like a lot of European countries. And if you look back in history, the people who are calling him that, they would advocate then that the people who created the welfare state are Marxists and communists. It's just social democratic principles. So I
Okay.
suggest they read up.
Well, my other caller, though, makes a fair point about his Brexit stance. Adam was saying that. Jay, do you know what the stance is, the Labour Party stance is on Brexit?
You know what? To be honest, I don't know what the stance is, but at the same time, I don't know the stance of the Tories, and they're the ones in power.
Adam, what would you say to Jay?
Well, there we go. To me, no offence intended, that just says a typical Labour voter. Doesn't know what the policy is of a party, but advocates voting for them on one of the most crucial issues of our time, which will determine the future and the destiny of our country. It just
Well,
is
that can
ultimate.
apply to the Conservative voters as well,
Not
because
really.
they don't know what
Not really.
they're voting for.
Well,
Half the
well-
MPs, the Remainers on the Conservative side telling Theresa May to do one thing, and then you've got the Brexiteers telling her to do another
fine.
thing. So what about
You're-
the Conservative
you're-
voters who are
Okay,
left in the lurch there? Surely
let's
that means then
okay.
they don't know what they're voting on either.
All right, let's let Adam reply, Jay. You're not cutting you off. Adam.
You'll find that most Conservative members actually support the idea of leaving the
Leaving the EU.
European Union. However, it's the parliamentary Conservatives that you have the rebels that want to try to keep our foot in the single market and the customs union. But you'll actually quite find that most Conservatives want to leave the European Union and want to see it through. You just got some rebels in the Tory party that want to make it difficult to get what they see is a good Brexit for Britain, and they don't really care about the vote.
I will leave it there. Adam from Millwall, thank you. You started it off. Jay coming involved, thank you for that as well. Should we talk a little bit about the Twitter conversation? John in Hyams Park says, so tweeting a video of a gay Muslim boy being thrown from a building by ISIS is now classed as anti-Muslim by Twitter. The only reason Twitter deleted Jada Franson's account is because President Trump retweeted her tweet. It is pathetic. David in St Albans. Is it pathetic, David? Good morning.
It is pathetic, Nick. Yes, I believe you have interviewed Jada Franson.
I did.
And I thought you were a bit antagonistic towards her.
Okay.
And,
I think people like that need to be challenged.
oh, yes, but if you let her speak, I mean, I know that there's a very big trend in present time for people to speak over each other, and so it's difficult to hear what people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, a little proper conversation, and she would tell you what she needs to tell you. And I think there is a very strong message there, and their speech is not hate, by the way. I've looked at some of it, and it's not hate. It's just telling the truth. Though video.
Whoa. It's telling the truth as they perceive it.
No.
Well, I seem to recall. What were the three? There was one video that was wrong. It was a boy attacking another boy, a young man in Holland, wasn't it? And suggesting that they were migrants, and in fact he was Dutch-born.
Well, he
So
might have been Dutch-born, but I believe his parents were immigrants.
No, but hang on. You can't... Hold on. They said this... I can't remember the exact text. It was something like Muslim refugee behaviour in Netherlands or something. He wasn't a refugee. You can't put out falsehoods like that. And you have to be challenged. Come on.
Yeah, okay, but it's just wordplay, isn't it?
No. I'm sorry, David, it's not... No, because obviously, look what this Muslim refugee is doing in the Netherlands. Obviously, it's a go at all refugees. Look what this Dutch-born Muslim bloke is doing in the Netherlands. It's not going to have the same impact, is it? It's clear what their rhetoric is.
Have you seen any of the videos from Sweden, for example?
No, but hang on, whoa, what for Jada Franson's put up, do you mean?
No, other people.
No, I have. It's not the sort of thing I really go looking for. Just briefly, what do we see in those?
Complete mayhem, cars being set on fire, rioting. Sweden's the rape country of the world, apparently.
Well, is that true? You see, I've heard that, and indeed, I don't know if that's actually true. Is it?
Well, I could
Let's try
look into it a bit and see. I mean, how many videos do you need to see of burning cars to know that something's going on, seriously?
Why do you want to look at all those videos?
Because there's something happening which is being covered up by the authorities, like Sweden says everything's fine over there. It isn't. Hungary and Poland are keeping out the Muslim so-called refugees.
They're not all Muslims, David.
Not all Muslims.
No, they're not all. There are other people, other faiths.
Yeah, but they're not causing trouble, you see. This is the whole problem. It's Islam that is causing the problems.
Well, no. It's not Islam, is it? That's like saying Christianity is causing all the problems. It is some people who wrongly reflect their religion who are causing the problems. Islam in and of itself is not a problem, in my book.
Okay, Nick, can I just quickly say, I suggest that your listeners have a look at the website called the religionofpeace.com, and you will have a bit of education if you look at it.
All right. Okay, David, you've got it out there. Obviously, I'm not supporting in any way. If you want to go and check it out, I'm sure there's a counter website as well that you can check out. I sense it's going to be a little bit slanted and a little bit biased, but David, thank you.
Steve's call from Bristol, Richard in Hackney. Steve, you think the MPs have some of the blame here? Tell me why.
Oh, absolutely. Because the ones who are... Well, you know why? Because, but I'd say quickly, Parliament gave the decision to people. People gave them the decision. They don't like it, a lot of them. And ever since, they, and lots of people in the media, have been trying to slowly get hope for a second referendum, etc., etc. And if that isn't stopping democracy, then I'm the Pope. So that person you had on before, the Scottish MP, I think she was,
Joanna Terry, yeah.
Joanna, yeah, and she says it's rubbish that they're trying to stop democracy. I say she's talking rubbish when she said it's blatantly an attempt. And you've got to understand, the people who didn't get it, that it could happen, the people who were so out of touch that they didn't realise it could possibly happen, the Brexit vote, and there's millions of them, these are the same people who have to realise that they are playing with fire, possibly, and if not fire, then some kind of civil protest, not necessarily disorder, but some kind of protest, what will happen. It's a very serious thing.
Well, I'm sure protests would happen, and that's a democratic act. Protest.
Good, yes, but it's not a democratic act taking away democracy, is it?
Yeah, but I mean, I absolutely reject the idea that discussing how we leave the European Union is taking away democracy.
No, yes, but it's all about changing the vote, isn't it?
Is it?
It's all about. It isn't discussing it. We've had the vote. We decided to leave. Those who say but
that vote last week. That vote last week was. But that vote last week, Steve, was all about Parliament having a say about the final deal. It wasn't about stopping Brexit.
Yeah, but Parliament, yeah, they will change it if they can. You know, for a while that's all about changing it. What happens if they come back with an agreement from Europe? And then Parliament says no. What happens then? There's loads of politicians that have.
Well, Theresa May has made it clear what happens then. We leave without a deal.
They're trying to get another referendum.
But Theresa May has made it clear.
Stop it. They are. Well, she says so, but God knows what. I mean, do we trust them? I certainly can't trust the Labour Party anymore. People who I respect, like Dennis Skinner, just sat there saying nothing last week. It's perfectly reasonable for people to be extremely untrusting of the government and the opposition and whatever. But I mean, just listen to the BBC. We know on the, what's his name, Marr programme, not Johnny Marr, Marr programme.
Johnny Marr was a whole other Marr. Yeah, Andrew Marr.
Yeah, that's a whole other Andrew Marr, thank you. I mean, yeah, it's a shame it wasn't the Smiths, but anyway, he had about 5 Remainers on per one Brexiteer on his show. The bias of the BBC. And you're praying for a second referendum, aren't you? Or maybe you've given up on your dream now, that one. But it goes on and on and on. And it is. I'm sorry, Sheila.
Do you know what I'm praying for?
Democracy.
Do you know what I'm praying for, Steve? I'm praying.
I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you. If you let me, I'll tell you. I am praying that Britain can leave the European Union in a strong. I'm going to sound like the Prime Minister's strongest way. In a strong, in a strong, safe way. And yet, if you are prepared to look at even a report today that says that people who voted in some of the most ardent Leave areas will be some of the most affected by a hard Brexit, then it seems...
Who said that?
Well, let me just finish my point. It seems obvious to me that there is still a discussion to be had about the type of Brexit that we choose. Not whether we choose Brexit, but the type of Brexit that we choose.
Before the vote. We had that before the vote, Sheila. You know, they did explain. It can't go into minute detail before because it's never been done before. No one has got a crystal ball. But the way I see it is, those who say they didn't know the basics, the strong points, what were going to happen, how it was going to work, what we were going to leave, they're either, those who say they didn't know about it, they're either liars or they were not paying attention. The government handed the leaflet out through the door. Gideon Osborne, the Prime Minister and what have you, and others, on the television, on the radio, explaining it. It was said, and lots of people, they felt like they're struggling in life, but at least I've got me vote. We're told vote. It's something you deserve. It's your right. You're mad if you don't vote. It is. And the Prime Minister made a metaphorical handshake with the people of the UK. Whatever happens, whoever wins the vote, this is what's going to happen. We're leaving.
Can I ask you to
you are actually considering taking that off the people. It's wrong. You've got to see that. And so's that Scottish
I don't have the right to take anything off the people.
No, you don't.
Well, I don't have the power or the right to take anything off the people. My job is to talk. That's my job. My job is to talk, and I'm a big fan of talking because the alternative, Steve, is that I can hear you're angry, and the alternative is that your anger and other people's anger becomes violence. I'm not suggesting that you will, but
you've got to realise threatening to take away people. They're entitled to be angry.
Oh, yes, you're entitled to be angry. But you're not entitled to be violent.
Pardon?
Nobody's entitled to be violent.
Nobody's entitled to take away our democratic vote.
Nobody's entitled to be violent.
Well, there we go. It's going to be a gun.
Well, do you agree with me that nobody's entitled to be violent?
No, we wouldn't agree with that because if we'd said that to Adolf Hitler, he'd have walked all over us, for example. So there comes a time where you take so much...
What?
You said no one's entitled to be violent, right? And I'd say I wouldn't necessarily agree with that because...
So you're comparing killing an MP on the streets to going to war against Hitler?
No, I'm talking about pure violence.
I'm not. I'm talking about whether it is ever acceptable to express your political views within these shores.
You didn't say that. You didn't say that.
All right, Steve.
You're coming
All right, Steve. Let me. Oh no, I'm not. Let me ask you. Oh, Steve, you're a right one. Let me just ask you really explicitly then. Is it ever acceptable for an individual or a group to take it upon themselves to be violent towards a politician or a radio presenter or anyone else whose views they disagree with? Is that ever okay?
No, it isn't.
Well, thank you. Well, we agree. We'll finish on agreement. Thank you. Hitler, come on. Richard in Hackney, hello.
Hi, Sheila. Wow, it's hard to follow.
Yes, well. Kevin in Oxford, hello.
Yeah, hi there. If I can be brief and let me finish what I've got to say. I think we're going to see anarchy on the streets in this country like we've never seen before with this Brexit and Remain kind of situation. What's happening is that there's been a democratic vote and the populace of people have voted to Brexit. And those people are not happy with, it looks like the politicians are trying to throw spanner in every kind of works along the way. So therefore it goes to a dictatorship, not a democracy we live in. And also when we look at the politicians, I think they're dated. They need to move with the times. The average Joe public that go to work hard, they see these political debates they have in the Commons. They're like a load of chimpanzees. It's like a Muppets tea party, the jeering, the shouting, the absolute kidology. You don't see this in commerce. You don't see this in a board meeting, a site meeting on engineering sites. This carry on. And the Joe public are thinking, these people are making decisions about our lives in the future. And they're behaving like children, jeering and shouting, and I think the Joe public have lost faith in politics.
But is that any justification for threatening them with violence?
None whatsoever. But unfortunately,
and that's not new behaviour, is it, Kevin?
No, you're always going to get the violent, ones that are going to obviously take it, away from peaceful demonstration, which is why I fear, and you can quote me on this, Sheila, I'm Kevin, you got the date. This will end in tears in this country because it's so volatile. You can't even mention it now with friends in a pub. People are spitting blood over it. And I honestly think if the politicians don't get their act together, start treating the public like we've got some kind of savvy between our ears, and set a new precedent, I think Cromwell should bang on the doors again, oof them all out and start again, personally.
What is it about the process so far that makes you feel that your democratic vote is being challenged?
Well, what's happening is that every corner you're trying to turn, it's trial by media, the unicorns, all these words we're hearing.
Hang on, you're not making any sense, Kevin.
Well, no, I'll try and explain to you if you let me finish. You butted in there.
No, I didn't butt in. I literally didn't understand the words you were saying. I need help.
Right. What I'm unhappy with the process is that people aren't, and the politicians aren't realising that Brexit is a simple commerce, a business move. And in no business do you expect to, in the first 12 months, make shed loads of money. It's going to take time to build businesses and move forward. So all these kind of politicians that are trying to block it and stall it, hoping that it loses passage in the will to live, are just throwing spanners in the works. The country needs to move forward, get on with the job, and start trading with the rest of the world. Because at the end of the day, Sheila, it's only business, it's commerce. It can all be done quite simply. We can send men to the moon.
It's not just business.
This is just transactions.
It isn't just business. It's politics, it's people, it's security. It's all kinds of things, as well as business. It's research and development.
Business.
Does it?
Which amounts to business and commerce. Everything is business. The police cut is business. Is cutting the police, trying to save money. But what I'm saying is they need to work on it, because the squabbling and these political debates in the Commons, the Joe public are seeing this.
But I think, Kevin, I think that some people, you're absolutely within your rights to be passionate in your desire for Brexit to happen. Nothing wrong with that. But I think some people I speak about Brexit most days actually on air, and a lot of people who are as passionate as you are about Brexit, they begin from that point, and then they say certain things that for which I don't think they have any evidence. So, for example, well, hang on. MPs are trying to stop Brexit. Well, Article 50 sailed through the Commons, the triggering of Article 50. Various moments of tension and debate have happened in the Commons, but broadly speaking, it's all gone through as planned. As Theresa May said just the other day, there have been 36 votes on Brexit in the Commons, and she's won 35 of them. So this idea that there's this bulwark of success in Parliament that's stopping Brexit is a myth. It isn't happening.
Well, it is happening.
You're getting your way, Kevin.
No, everyone's getting their way. Nobody knows. No one has a magic wand or crystal ball to see what's going to happen in the future with Brexit. What we need to do is get on with the job. Stop blocking it at all angles. You've just started your speech again. You haven't responded to what I just said to you. 36 votes in the Commons, 35 won by Theresa May. Brexit means Brexit, and it's storming on through, on track. Hooray. Good for Kevin and his mates. Good on you. Enjoy Christmas. Do you know what I mean? You're getting your way, Kevin, but you're acting like a petulant child who isn't getting his way. Well, you see, he's even just hung the phone up on me. And then lots of you will say, no, you hung up on him. Nope, he hung up on me. That is a fact. Brexiters, people who want to leave, are getting their way. You are getting your way. And the fact that the rest of the country and MPs who represent the rest of the country now want a conversation around what that way looks like, that's democracy. The thing you love so passionately is a good thing that you love so passionately. That's democracy too. Continuing to talk, continuing to debate, continuing to fight over the detail. That's democracy too. Kevin doesn't like it. He doesn't like democracy. He only likes his own view, which is why he began his conversation saying, let me finish before you speak, i.e. sit down and listen, and why he ended the conversation by hanging up on me, because there is no evidence that he is not getting his own way. So he's in his kitchen somewhere now, stamping his feet, is my guess.
Boris Johnson and David Davis still got jobs. Damien Green hasn't. Why? Christopher is in Englefield Green. What a delightfully sounding part of the world. Christopher, what would you like to say?
Hi, good morning to you.
Hello.
I must say, I am so disturbed by the quality of politicians we have.
Yes.
I'm an ardent leaver, and I dislike your point of view, but there we go.
You're powerfully entitled to be wrong, Christopher. It's a mark of a democracy.
No. But my big concern, of course, is that when we do leave, if we do leave, then we really haven't got the calibre of civil servants and politicians.
Oh, I'll stop you there. Civil servants are the only thing keeping us afloat at the moment. I don't know if you heard my interview with Lord Price yesterday, former trade minister. The one thing he said, even though he went into full politician's mode when I attempted to push him in a certain direction, the one thing he stressed was that we do have first-class civil servants. The fear is, Christopher, that they haven't got any experience of doing trade deals. But you knew that before you voted for leave.
That's very true. That is very true. And as I say, that my big concern is that when we leave, we really haven't got the calibre. And I'm talking about the front bench and back bench politicians on both sides of the House, for that matter, really are not very good.
Why do you think that is? What's changed in the course of your life?
I'm nearly 70, so I've been around for a while. And but what has happened is, that there's a lack of education, there's a lack of experience, and of course, for the last 40 years, they've handed over the governing of this country in greater part to the EU.
Well, now you're just being silly. So you're suggesting that we haven't had a decent calibre of politician for 40 years. That's odd, because I would have suggested that you quite liked Margaret Thatcher.
I'm not suggesting that for one moment.
So what's changed then?
We have had... what has changed is that politics has become a game for people like... I mean, take David Cameron. I mean, for him it was a game. And for Tony Blair, it was a game. You know, they were taking the whole business.
You can't. I mean, with respect, Christopher, you can't hold David Cameron and Tony Blair responsible for the paucity of talent in Theresa May's cabinet.
I'm saying that the whole ethos of government has changed. It has become almost a part of showbiz.
You really think so? Show business for ugly people is what they used to call it, isn't it?
I don't think that's true either.
Well, they did. I'm not saying.
Well, you're being so flippant.
It's a figure of speech, Christopher, that's well established. I think it was probably Truman Capote that said it the first time. If you've got a problem with the figure of speech, take it up with Truman, not with me. So here's the problem, though, and you won't like this as a unpersuadable Leave voter, is that the absolute denigration of British politics was when you allowed hecklers and liars onto the public stage, and unfortunately you've fallen for the heckles and the lies, which is why the whole country's ended up in the mess it's in. So inevitably you have to blame it on the people trying to, and I will give Theresa May credit for this, Theresa May is cleaning up all the vomit that Boris Johnson and Michael Gove have sicked up over the entire country. You're part of the vomit, sadly.
Well, that's very kind of you. That's very kind.
Merry Christmas.
And to you.
10:17. Pete's in Salford. Pete, what would you like to say?
I just think they're all at it, James. And I think that's the reason why Gove and Johnson and anybody else you care to mention is fine. Because what are Labour going to do? Hold them under a microscope? They're in exactly the same position.
And what, an actual dishonesty?
Yeah.
Who?
Before the election,
yeah.
The NME, we will deal with historic student debt.
Yeah.
Well, have they done that? And then he goes on the...
Mate, he's leader of the opposition, Pete. What could he have done?
Well, he could have put forward a plan for dealing with student debt. Okay, something specific.
He's leader of the opposition. What could he have done in terms of passing laws?
Labour manifesto commitment before the election. We're going to scrap first-time buyers stamp duty. What did they do? As a party of opposition, they voted against the finance bill clause, which...
You're sounding a little bit desperate, Pete. You've got a fella on, Andrew Marr, saying we've got 58 impact assessments, and then saying to a select committee a month later we haven't got any, and you're citing a paragraph from a New Musical Express interview with a politician who didn't get elected.
Or Labour telling people before the election that we're going to scrap first-time buyers stamp duty, and then voting against the measure when it came through on the finance.
I'm not familiar with that, but you honestly think that's morally comparable?
I think that's if Labour are in a position where...
you can't put me in the incredible position of having to defend Jeremy Corbyn, but you must realise how ridiculous you sound.
No, I think politically...
So telling an individual politician telling a barefaced lie is, in your mind, exactly the same as parliamentary shenanigans?
But Labour are constantly lying. Frank Fields on Twitter the other day saying a poor woman's universal credit has gone wrong and she's going to be penniless over Christmas. David Gauke comes back on Twitter and says actually she had £600 emergency payment put in her account at the start of the week.
And Frank Field knew that, did he?
Well, he didn't check, did he?
But you're accusing him of knowing that.
Has he apologised since?
No, you're accusing him of knowing that when he said it.
Well, I haven't seen an apology from Frank Field saying...
No, I haven't seen an apology from you, because you're saying that he knew when he said it that it wasn't true.
But what I'm saying is that...
No, I know what you're saying. I'm just clarifying that you know what you're saying, Pete. You are saying that Frank Field deliberately lied in public.
Or did he not care?
No, I'm asking you what you said. Are you saying that he deliberately lied?
I'm saying that people are using...
Listen, yes or no, Pete?
Well, I don't know if he deliberately...
because you just said that he did. You said it was exactly the same as David Davis deliberately lying, because the impact assessments cannot have existed and not existed simultaneously. So on one of those occasions, he was demonstrably deceiving his audience. I think I'll allow you now to apologise to Frank Field and say you have absolutely no evidence whatsoever to suggest that he knew he was lying in the way that David Davis must have done.
Well, he's been told that he was wrong, and I haven't seen him come out and say anything.
I'm going to give you one more chance to prove to me that you can demonstrate he was knowingly misleading the public.
I haven't got a clue.
Right, so don't accuse him of lying unless you can. Let's try again.
Do you want more examples?
Yeah, go on. Another example of someone knowingly misleading the public with your proof in place that it can't possibly be anything other than a deliberate deceit, Pete. Fill your boots.
I got sent on Facebook a Momentum video the other day that said Crown post offices have been shut down since the Royal Mail got privatised.
And how is a Momentum Facebook video the responsibility of any elected parliamentarian?
Because Momentum are in league with Jeremy Corbyn.
Momentum are a pressure group, and if is Jeremy Corbyn's signature on this video?
But you know the problem.
Why do you answer every question with a question? Is Jeremy Corbyn's signature on this video? Did Jeremy Corbyn send it to you?
Just let me explain. The problem with the video is Crown post offices are not controlled by a privatised Royal Mail.
Which doesn't change the relevance of my question, Pete, Pete. I hope you're getting paid by Central Office for this. I will ask you again, did Jeremy Corbyn send you that video? Did the Labour Party endorse it in any observable way?
So Momentum and the Labour Party aren't in league together?
I've no idea how close Momentum are. They seem to be very keen to get rid of a lot of sitting parliamentarians from the Labour Party. But, Pete, this isn't...
You get your pressure groups, put out all the lies, and then you can distance yourself from them.
But we're talking about cabinet ministers, and you're talking about activists who are keen to see many Labour MPs deselected. So I'll ask you again, did the Labour Party endorse the video that you got on Facebook, and did Frank Field knowingly mislead the public? Because otherwise, I mean, you're not just on thin ice, you're under it.
Right, I don't know what was in Frank Field's head.
So we'll leave him out of it then.
There is a link between Momentum...
And now we've got a Momentum video on Pete's Facebook feed, which is morally comparable to a cabinet minister lying to the British public.
Because it's a deliberate untruth. Momentum know...
Do you take Momentum seriously?
Well, they clearly take...
No. Do you take Momentum seriously? You consider them to be a political force as powerful as a cabinet minister?
I think they won a hell of a lot of votes for Labour at the election.
Yeah, I'll ask you again. Are they as important in the current British political landscape as a sitting cabinet minister? And is a Facebook post in your feed somehow as relevant to the political discourse as the public comments of a cabinet minister, Pete? I'm with her. Seriously, mate. I think she's nailed it. Give Mike one more chance. Mike, why can Davis stay while Green has to go?
Hello, James.
Hello, Mike.
Yeah, sorry about that. Lost the call. Never mind. Yes. First and foremost, I thought David Davis was very unwise to make that statement. He sort of let himself in for a lot of things. The other thing is, James.
So why is he allowed? Why is he allowed to stay then, and Damien Green has to go?
Well, that's just the way it is. What? That's not why I phoned, though.
Well, that's the question I'm asking, mate.
At the top of the show, you were taking down a load of people who had misled
cabinet ministers, yeah.
Cabinet ministers, yeah. And yeah, fair enough. Some porkies have been told. What you failed to mention was, though, on the other side of the coin, where politicians from the other side of the political spectrum have told some porkies. Chief Lee, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell saying that we would not only abolish tuition fees, but we would also refund all those tuition fees that have been paid.
No, he never. This is surreal. I hold no candle for Jeremy Corbyn, but I mean, what he actually said: we will deal with the debt of students who have already graduated university during the period in which they paid £9,000 per year. I know that Conservative newspapers have tried to turn that into some sort of retrospective pledge, but just to help me out, how do you think Jeremy Corbyn could have done anything regarding tuition fees without winning the general election, Mike?
But he knew it was unaffordable.
No, that's not what I asked you, Mike. No, because he didn't say that he would abolish them. He said he would deal with them, i.e. could possibly find some way of staggering the payments, making it easier to deal with. If you want to pretend that he said he was going to abolish them, that's fine. But my question still remains, how could he have done any of that without winning a general election? Because the reason why I hold cabinet ministers to account is because they are in power. So when they make a promise, they are capable of keeping it or breaking it. Can you just briefly talk me through how someone who is not in power can change laws?
They can't change laws, but
what could Jeremy Corbyn have done then, without winning a general election, with regard to tuition fees, Mike? Just talk me through his options.
Well, no, he'd have had to win the election.
So why have you phoned me to tell me that he hasn't done something he never could have done?
the point I'm making was that what he said was basically affected the outcome of the election. And
what he said was not what you thought he said. What he said was, we will deal with the debt of students who have already graduated university. So how can you conclude that he hasn't done that when you've just told me that he was absolutely incapable of doing it?
He wouldn't have been able to do it anyway, because he wouldn't have been able to afford to have done it.
Says who, Mike? Says who, Mike?
For him.
All right, Mike. Have a great Christmas, mate. Honestly, turkeys. It's unbelievable. Voting for Christmas. Still at it.
Let's go to Stephen in High Wycombe. Stephen, what would you like to say?
Yes, good evening, Iain. I heard your interviews with the Polish MP when he was talking about Polish history and British history, and he had a very good point that contrary to what's happening in UK, in Poland we are actually being taught the history and being proud of it and what happened in the past. For example, you've seen on a day of independence we had 60,000 people walking around proudly displaying white and red flags of Poland and celebrating the independence. And then you had a tool like this guy Verkstadt or whatever his name. He was saying that there was 60,000 Nazis walking the street, which was a complete lie. And Poles are very proud of the history. In England, for example, if you have patriots walking down the street and saying, we just celebrating Englishness, right away you're then being, surrounded with, you racist, you this and that, which is completely ridiculous. Now, when it comes to Theresa May's visit, it's very interesting that it's happening right now. I myself really don't like the Prawo and Sprawiedliwość government. I don't like Kaczynski, and I think that he's a vindictive person, but that's my point of view.
Sorry, Daniel Kaczynski?
No, not Daniel Kaczynski. No, I'm talking about the guy. There was a prime minister and the other guy who died in a crash. So Jarosław and Lech, both of them, I personally don't like them, don't like the politics and the vengefulness and everything. But there is one thing I like, the only thing I like about the Polish government now is that they're really standing strong about not having any refugees, so-called refugees from Middle East settling in Poland. And the problem that we have in Western Europe, people are afraid to talk about it because right away you're labeled by racist or bigot and all the other leftist, things, and when literally logical arguments are being presented, people who thinking like me, we are called racist or bigots and everything. But then you look at the statistics, for example, and you see what's happening in Western countries with the influx of refugees from those places. You had a London Bridge massacre, you had the Manchester massacre, you had Sweden, which is a rape capital.
Well, come on, because a lot of these terror attacks.
No, I'm sorry. Well, you can.
Well, no, hang on. No. You said something. I'm going to challenge you on it because a lot of the terror attacks that occur in this country are people who are born and bred here and educated here. So you can't just tar everyone with the same brush. What a great thing it is, Stephen.
You're right.
Good.
You're right to that. But you can brush the ideology with the same brush, and that's the problem. But because you don't want to, in Western Europe, you don't want to talk about it.
No, but you're just tarring everyone with the same brush. I mean. Maybe we should have said that we don't want 980,000 Polish people coming here.
Let me just explain you something. We in Eastern Europe, countries like Poland, like Hungary, like Bulgaria, like Serbia, we had a very bad history with Islam, with Ottoman Empire, which is the same Islam which was beaten by Charles Martel at the Battle of Tours, the same that was beaten by gates of Vienna. It's the same ideology. And
do you not think that if you are members of the European Union and the European Union has a system of allocating refugees, do you not think Poland should take its fair share?
No. No, very simple, because for quite a lot of those so-called refugees, they actually committed very vile terrorist acts.
Just wow. Listen to yourself. Look, I'm not pretending that there haven't been terrorist acts committed by people who have come to Western Europe. I'm not pretending that at all. But to say that a lot of them, I don't even know how to argue against that, because it is such a fatuous statement and completely wrong. And you must know that when you say it. Stephen, thank you for your call, sort of.
A passport of purest blue. Sell it to me. Tell me why I should be celebrating today instead of just feeling utterly ambivalent and profoundly baffled by my fellow man. Michael's in Basingstoke. Michael, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Well, hopefully I can give you a reason to celebrate.
Well, we need to sort your phone line out first, Michael. I'll be back in a moment. Ross is in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi has had quite a lot of mentions on the programme this week, Ross.
Oh, has it?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, because I'm looking for round robins from people, you know, those letters that people send out at Christmas detailing the most banal elements of their last year. And I suggested the best ones are from people who you hardly know. You might have met them on holiday in Abu Dhabi 18 years ago.
Oh, well, probably not. My parents only just moved here.
Small world. What would you like to say? Sell me the blue passport. Tell me why I should be celebrating. Dancing a little jig.
Mr. O'Brien, it's not about the colour of the passport.
You must have misunderstood my question.
Okay, well, it's about the fact. It's more about how it came about that EU passports had to be standardised. Do you know how it came about?
Well, you mean like Croatia?
They will eventually have to fall into line.
When?
Sorry?
When?
I'm not sure when exactly, but
But you know that they definitely will.
I don't know that they will know, but I'm sure they will, because.
Right.
Do you know how it came about?
No, tell me.
The other
Tell me.
27 members had to have standardised passports.
Yes.
How did it come about?
I don't know, Ross. You were supposed to be telling me.
Oh, sorry. It came about through several council directives. The first beginning in 1974, then again in 1984, when the EU Council simply said that it has to have a uniform passport.
So why doesn't Croatia?
Well, I think I would imagine because it's a recent member state and it's been allowed a grace period.
But you would imagine that, but it's not true. You can imagine whatever you want.
Well, the point is that the EU issued these council directives, and we had to follow them.
We didn't have to.
Well, I think we did.
Well, you think wrong, my friend. Let's pretend you're right. Let's pretend you're right, and we had to have a burgundy passport. Why does that upset you?
It had to have the words European Union on it. That's what upsets me more.
Yes, but I asked about the burgundy bit.
As with the driving license. Do you know how that came about?
Ross, you've just proved that your kind of follow-ups to asking me whether I know something don't really leave you looking particularly knowledgeable. So I'm going to absolutely say no, I have no idea how that came about. Please tell me about driving licences as well.
Again, through an EU directive that was transposed into British law by a statutory instrument simply signed by the relevant minister without any debate or act of parliament at all.
Yes,
this is why I voted leave, so we don't have to have any more of these.
To take some words off your driving licence.
Sorry?
You voted leave to take 2 words off your driving licence and your passport.
Don't simplify it in that ridiculous manner. It's so that we don't have
Tell me again, Ross.
transpose EU directives into British law without any kind of democratic process.
So the cut and pasting of all EU law that the government is to undertake shortly after March 2019 must really infuriate you.
Oh, the manner in which they're going about leaving, I don't like at all. But
No, I bet you don't, because it recognises reality. Just take me back again, and I apologise for oversimplifying things. But in terms of the passport and the driving licence, you voted to take the words European Union off them.
Again, that's a very immature simplification.
Okay.
I voted leave in large part because I don't want more EU directives transposed into British law by statutory instruments signed by the relevant minister.
Okay, so give me the things then. I can't do this anymore. Give me the things that you feel constrained by, or the laws that you don't like, or the things that you're really looking forward not to have to do anymore, Ross.
EU laws that I don't like. Well, where should we begin?
No, the things that you won't have to do anymore after we've left. I apologise if I'm being immature again, but the question seems really easy to understand to me.
Well, if we leave and we actually repeal a number of laws, there's all sorts of things. Take a small one from the EU landfill directive to the fact.
How does that affect you, Ross?
How does it affect how I put my bins out?
Yes. How will a change to the EU landfill directive affect you?
Well, because every week we have to recycle in a certain way, or we have to put food waste.
That's your council. That's not the EU that's doing that. All councils have different bin policies. But anyway, let's pretend you're right, Ross. Tell me how your bins are going to be a brave new world after March 2019.
Again, you're reducing it to the...
No, Ross, I'm taking what you give me, mate. I asked for something, you said bins, and now you're embarrassed that we're talking about bins, but it was you that wanted to talk about bins.
Well, it's simply an example of how the EU has extended its control over every...
And that's the best you've got, you think? So tell me what you're going to be able to do with your bins after we've left, Ross.
Well, it depends what the government decides.
What do you dream of? Tell me about your bin-based dream.
Decide whatever it wants,
yes.
Because it no longer has to follow an EU directive that was signed into British law by the relevant minister.
Okay, again, I'm sorry for being immature and simplistic, but just describe your bin-based dream to me. What is the future of bins in Abu Dhabi that makes you sort of glow with patriotic pride?
That's not what makes me... That's again, very immature. What makes me not glow with patriotic pride...
What are you looking forward to? I want to join you in this brave new bin-based future. What will I be able to do after leaving that I can't do now with my rubbish?
Well, again, it depends what the government...
Just tell me, Ross, please. What do you want the government to do? What is your bin-based Brexit bonanza?
What I want is that this government makes its own laws and that it doesn't have to transpose EU directives.
Statutory instruments. Yes, I know what you're reading from, but again, last chance. Bins. What does the future look like?
I don't know, because it's what the government decides. It will decide what it wants.
25 minutes after 10. Michael is in... Well, I wouldn't want to be unemployed or disabled in this country now, actually, but things ain't going to be getting any better, unless, of course, your man here is correct, and we are all about to see a disappearance of all the people who are going to see the doctors without any disappearance of the 48% of doctors who are from overseas. Michael's in Moron. Come on. A passport of purest blue, Michael. What are we missing?
Well, I don't think that it's such a big deal in so much as it's just, for me, I think it's just symbolism. I mean, at the end of the day, I know you're a staunch Remainer.
No, I'm a rationalist. So I probably don't buy into symbolism.
I listen to you every day. You really... No, but you don't buy into symbolism. But when people march and they've got the European flag, you've not got a problem with it. And simultaneously, that's symbolism. So...
Well, but I think they're both pointless. Well, why are you telling me what I think about people march? When did people march with the European flag? Do you know, I wasn't sure what the European flag was until the Queen wore that hat.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I mean, it's just symbolism, and it's just people feeling a need to identify with something.
So tell me how a different coloured passport changes how you identify.
Because it makes you know that you're different from everybody else with the European passport. So if you
Except
have
Croatians.
a passport... I mean, I'm old enough. I'm exactly the same age.
Except Croatians. You feel different from everybody else, but not Croatian.
I don't. I was dating a Croatian girl. I've been to Croatia. You know.
But you won't feel different from her because she'll have a passport that's the same colour as yours.
Well.
So your sense of identity, is based upon wanting to feel different from other people.
No, my sense of identity doesn't.
What then?
Sorry, no, it doesn't make I want to feel different, but the fact that if the UK does change to a blue, it does symbolise the fact that it's a UK passport and not a European Union passport.
But it says United Kingdom on the front.
Yeah, but it doesn't, though. I changed from
it does.
blue to the... No, I understand what you're saying. I mean,
I'm not saying anything. I'm just describing something that's just real.
Yeah, you're describing a blue passport and you're trying to make it kind of like, you know, it's quite petty to change it to the blue. And I understand where you're coming from. And I
don't even know if it's petty. I want to understand why you care.
Well, people care because it symbolises something.
No, don't talk to me about people. I want you tell me why you are going to feel different with a blue passport in your hand compared to how you feel with a burgundy one.
And do you know what? If I veer away from the topic, are you not going to cut me off?
Of course I'm going to cut you off. I want you to tell me how you are going to feel different with a blue passport. You can't start talking about the football.
All right, let me tell you why I feel different. I personally would feel a little bit different with a blue passport. And the reason being because it would make me know that I am affiliated to the UK.
And you don't know that now?
And I'm not affiliated to the 28 member states. And I know that you keep banging on about it, but do you know what? I'm a black guy, and I've been to Europe, and black people in Europe are
I just want to pick you up on one other thing. That's a valid point. I'm not disputing that, but it isn't what we're asking. At the moment, when you carry a burgundy passport, you don't feel affiliated to the United Kingdom.
Not really, no. I feel affiliated to 28 member states.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
You're being honest. I thank you for your honesty. Doesn't make any sense at all to me, but it's your reality.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that when you know, if you voted to leave and you voted for whatever people have voted for, whatever their reasons and sovereignty, etc., then they want to naturally know that, you know, they have disassociated themselves from the 27 member states, and that blue passport is a symbol of that.
More than Article 50. More than Article 50, more than the referendum result, more than the actual act of departure. You need a symbol that makes you feel more unaffiliated than you do now with the European Union. Mate, like I say, I'm grateful to you for your honesty. I think that's nuts. I'm holding both in my hand. My left hand feels different from my right hand. Does it? I've got a blue one, I've got a burgundy one. One's got European Union written on it, one hasn't. All I want to know, Michael, is what that passport can give me. And you want the passport that will give you less. And that seems to me baffling.
What do you mean by give you less?
Oh, for heaven's sake, mate, you can't use a non-European Union passport to travel visa-free in European Union countries. Take that to the bank. Chris is in Ealing. Chris, a passport of purest blue.
Well, look, I don't know what all the fuss is about. I think basically this could have been on page 5, and why we bought a worry about it, I've got no idea whatsoever.
Well, hang on, you're supposed to be helping me understand people who think this is really special big day news headlines.
Well, I'm not going to get drawn into the same track some of the others came on, but the point is that new passports are going to get issued. Why not rebrand them blue? What difference does that make to anybody? It'll please some people, it won't bother others. It doesn't really cause a change at any cost.
No, but mate, I'm interested in the people who do really care, the people who used it during the referendum campaign. You actually had people saying, I really want a blue passport, and I want to know why. It's no good ringing me up and telling me that you're ambivalent about it. I want to understand the people who care.
I'll happily have a blue passport. It doesn't, you know, I'm quite...
So will I. I don't care whether it's blue or bright green. I care what it does, and it's going to do less than my old one, which is slightly irritating. And I don't understand people who don't feel irritated by the fact that we're going to have fewer powers and privileges with our new passports than we had with our old ones, and all they can say to me in return is, yes, but it will be blue.
Yeah, but you're wrong, you see, because if I have a house in Italy, you have to go through passport control and passport check. When I come out of Italy, my passport is checked in a queue. I don't get any fast-track through because I've got a European passport. I remember long before all the free borders, you could go to a post office, get a one-year passport, literally over the counter, and go to and from France on the ferries, because I lived that at the time, and to go to and from France all the time without a visa at all. You didn't need a visa.
I remember that as well. That was when I was a kid. We were in the European community.
But we
were in it. It was a British visitor's passport. You could only use it in European Union countries and Commonwealth countries. It had a list of them on the back. I think Belize was at the top, or Andorra.
It'd be quite easy for Europe, if it wanted to, as part of this, to maintain visa-free access for everybody.
Oh, no, you just don't get it, do you? The whole point about the Union is to have shared rights and privileges for every member state. They're not going to give them to non-member states, Chris. That is about as basic as it gets, my friend. But at least it'll be blue, yeah?
Well, blue. Rebrand England, go for blue passport. It means nothing to anybody.
Well, you can keep saying that, Chris, in the finest traditions of Brexit. You can keep saying that it won't change, nothing will change. We'll have all of the same visa-free travel that we have as members of it. You can keep saying it, but it never becomes true, my friend.
Well, it's true, but I've got an Irish passport anyway, so that's why I'm somewhat ambivalent. I can travel on both.
Well, hang on a minute. Why would you need an Irish passport? Why does that rescue you from the dangers of only having a British one if having a British one isn't going to change at all?
Well, because it depends on what queue I'm standing in. I'll go down the shorter
Well, no,
queue.
but hang on. So you do have different queuing times according on whether you have a European Union passport or not. Because the whole point of your call in your house in Italy was to tell us that we wouldn't, that things were going to be exactly the same, Chris.
Well, I think generally speaking they will be. I think generally speaking, I don't.
So you think things are going to be exactly the same, but you're really glad that you've got an Irish passport, which will ensure that you retain the privileges attached to a European Union passport when you lose the ones attached to a British passport, even though you think things are going to be exactly the same.
Who doesn't take out insurance on their house?
Oh, Chris. Yeah.
But that's the point. But I don't. It's been, this
Mate, when I went quiet, I wasn't inviting you to keep talking. I was presuming that you'd realise the ridiculousness of the position you've arrived in.
Not ridiculous at all.
No, he hasn't.
Just more common sense in more people.
Yeah, common sense.
You know, no. Listen, I'm not going to react like the others. It's a blue.
What do you mean you're not going to react like the others, mate? You've already made a much bigger muppet of yourself than the others.
Well, no, I think you've been making a muppet of yourself all morning.
Oh, I know you are, but what am I?
Well, exactly, but you have got the microphone.
I know you are, but what am I?
Well, no, what I'm saying is, I think...
I know you are, but what am I?
Well, I just said you made a muppet of yourself this morning.
I know you are, but what am I?
Well, exactly. We can keep going down that route. But the point is, this is not the issue, and it shouldn't be the central issue. It's a blue passport. It's part of a rebranding. Who cares?
Thank you, Chris. It's 11:18. James is in Merthyr Tydfil. Big in Wales today. Very big in Wales. Blue passport, Simon. James, why so exciting?
Well, James, before you stop ripping me and being sarcastic and start blowing in the air...
You've only got 55 seconds left,
That's fine. I'm going to be straight to the point, mate. Is that I'm happy that we're going to have a British passport back. And on the reverse, when the Europeans come across to the UK, are they going to be waiting for hours and hours and hours with their European passport because they have to go through a different immigration gate as well? How's that going to work?
Well, I imagine it will be more difficult for them than it is currently, but I'm not sure because we haven't got any infrastructure in place and no one's told us what our borders and our customs posts are going to look like. That's a consequence of Brexit, mate.
No, it's not a consequence of Brexit.
What is it then?
We've got our passport back, we've got our freedom back, and that's the end of it, James. So, unfortunately, you lost.
We've got... Did he put the phone down? Oh, rats. That's me. Owned and completely defeated at the altar of rhetoric because we've got our freedom and we've got our passports back. You lost. Perhaps, just a thought. Nicky's in Hornchurch. Nicky, a passport of purest blue. Sell it to me.
No, my point is it doesn't make no difference to the passport colour, does it really? The bottom line is it represents more than that, doesn't it?
Go on.
Well, we've got 1 million plus migrants that have come from the Middle East into Germany and Europe over the past few years. Many of them from the intelligence services believe that have terrorist links or links to ISIS. And then...
Which intelligence services?
All the major intelligence. It doesn't matter which intelligence service.
Well, no, it does. Because I mean...
No, let's get to the point first, James, and then we can talk about that after.
Mate, I'll just be quiet. You fill your boots.
They'll all come to Europe through migration, whether it's economic migration or asylum seeking. They all get their British, German passports, European passports. And
how long does that take?
I don't know how long exactly.
I do.
Doesn't matter, does it? Do we know? Go on then, tell us.
7 years minimum, with quite a lot of restrictions in place.
Right, okay. So they get their passport, and then they can move around Europe freely. These terrorist fighters, yeah?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah? Okay, and then...
Why won't they be able to come to Britain?
Well, because they won't have a European passport, will they?
So we're not tourists anymore?
Well, of course we have tourists, but they won't be able to get in the country as easily as the gentleman said on the call earlier, while he's breezing through the queue of the EU queue.
No, but that's a queue, mate. That's not security that turns people away. A queue is when you wait a bit longer to get to the front. So if I've got a German...
You can't ignore the fact that...
Oh, sweetheart, it's not a fact. Let's just examine what you've said, Nicky. Nothing more, nothing less, okay? You think that by us withdrawing from the European Union and having blue passports, it's going to be harder for German people to come here on holiday?
No, it's going to be harder for terrorists that are disguised to come here and cause terrorist attacks.
So they come to the border and tell us that they're terrorists, do they?
yeah, right, very funny. Look, put it this way, James. You've got a guy that commits a terrorist attack in Germany and crosses 2 countries in 4 days through the freedom of movement. Is that not ridiculous?
That's through Schengen. It's not quite the same as freedom of movement, but that's not the point you rang in with. The point you rang in with was that 1 million people who've been housed or homed in Germany, and in 7 years' time, some of them will be applying for European Union passports.
The main
Nicky,
point,
mate, you know that you've made a fool of yourself. It's not my fault. You've suggested that by pulling out of the European Union, it's going to be harder for European people to come here on holiday.
James, the freedom of movement, they'll be able to settle in any country that is represent the freedom of movement, which it would have been our country until we left the EU.
So now you're worried about people coming here to work, because you were supposed to be worried about terrorists.
Terrorists settling in the UK, they've got no right to be here.
Mate, they're not going to be stopped from coming in unless they've already committed acts of terror, in which case they'll either be dead or in jail. What you've got is someone with a European Union passport. When did you last go on holiday, Nicky?
Last year.
Where did you go?
Spain.
Right, and what did you show to get out of this country and into that one?
Well, you're not talking so condescending. There's no need to be like that, is there, James?
There really is, because I'm not breaking through to you by being polite. So you've got a passport in your hand, you used it to go to Spain. Now imagine somebody with a Spanish passport wants to come here. What's going to happen?
James, listen, you can carry on having your breakdown over leaving the EU, but we're leaving the EU, get over it, and we'll all be fine.
Yes,
right?
okay.
You'll be much happier.
Are you going to be able to answer any of my questions, do you think, about...
I've just told you why I think it's a good idea we get our passport back, and that's the end of the story. All right,
Nicky, mate, slam the phone down now and then do a lap of honour. That's the fashion today. Go on, mate.
I'm not going to slam the phone down.
Oh, good. Then you'll answer my question. How are you going to tell when somebody comes here on holiday that they're planning a terror attack?
How are you going to enjoy your Christmas dinner when you're sitting there still worried about us leaving the EU, James? You're going to have a nice Christmas. Forget about the EU just for one day and enjoy your Christmas day.
You know you rang in to talk about it. There's a pattern emerging here. Mirror, reflection, horror. 11:45. I'm going to say one thing seriously, because obviously I think it's perfectly possible that people like Nicky just before the break and your man in Merthyr, I think they might go away not fully aware of how ridiculous they've sounded. But an awful lot of people listening who also describe themselves as leavers do think they sounded stupid and ridiculous. I think you're much, much worse than them. If you're sending me cowardly text messages claiming that somehow we only let on stupid people to argue while you're not ringing in yourself, you're pathetic. At least these people who I believe are victims of a con, at least they've got the guts to describe their position and to justify their beliefs, and that's why it's such a horrible experience for them when they realise how wrong they are. But to sit there and claim that somehow they are specially selected for their stupidity is both a definition of condescension and a very distillation of cowardice. So oddly, although they both went away very cross, I'm a lot more what would the word be, sympathetic to them than I am to the kind of people who sit there being rude about them while claiming to be on the same side of the argument that you haven't got the guts to try to make, because you know what will happen when you do. Exactly the same thing will happen. Oh my God, all of my points have fallen apart. I clearly have no idea what's going on. You lost, get over it, slam down the phone. You'd be exactly the same as them. So when you text in and tweet about, in your condescending, sneery way, about how these people can't string a sentence together and they only choose the stupid ones, you really are pathetic. Merry Christmas, though. Bez is in Harrow, not the Bez.
James, hello, James, mate. You're very intelligent. You're very, very intelligent. You're very articulate the way you argue your points. Why do you have an issue with people being proud of a blue passport?
I don't have an issue with it. I have a failure to understand it.
Do you understand the royal family? Do you understand Christmas trees? Do you understand pride in taking a day off for a royal wedding?
I understand the pleasure of having a day off work, but pride in a day off?
Do you understand the pleasure?
But also, let's go back to the Christmas trees. How can you be proud of a Christmas tree?
It gives you a good feeling, gives you utility.
A Christmas tree?
You know?
That's not
absolutely.
pride.
It looks very pretty, right? So does a blue passport. No? You're silent. Oh my gosh, I've made James O'Brien silent. My word. You've made my Christmas.
And I think we'll take Bez as a kind of note on which the whole year ends. That self kind of amusement, really, while everybody else is thinking, Muppet.
I know he's a moron.